The
Our
is
God is
and the
sovereign, part 3 of
it
3.
says, "For the Lord is a great God and a great King above all gods. In his hand are the deep places of the earth. The earth of the hills is his also. The sea is his, and he made it, and his hands formed the dry land. O come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker, for he is our God, and we are the people of his pasture and the sheep of his hand. Today, if ye will hear his voice, harden not your heart as in the provocation and as in the day of temptation in the wilderness." Glory be to God. So we see that this makes reference to the wilderness. Don't be like temptation, or don't yield, heed to temptation. Because we see that even though the Israelites said that they were hungry and the Lord provided manna and says, just eat what you want for the day, don't store it up. They still stored up the food. They didn't trust God. They couldn't place their trust in God. They still store up the food and it spoiled, and God provided food for the other days, but they couldn't trust God, even though God would have done so much for them before going into the wilderness when they were in Egypt, taking them out of Egypt, crossing the Red Sea, and all the rest. They couldn't trust God. God says, I will provide manna every day, but and to eat what you eat for the day, and every day I will provide fresh manna. But they couldn't trust God. They store up the food and the food spoiled because they were disobedient to God. They became thirsty and they started to complain and moan and just become difficult and ungrateful. And we see that Moses had to go to God, and we see that Moses strike the rock 2 times. He was meant to strike it once, but out of frustration, he struck the rock, or strike the rock twice. Glory be to God in the highest. So we have to understand that it's important that we remember the God that we serve, even when we are going through wilderness, or we're in the wilderness situation or season or whatever it is. God is still God. We and understand that we are going through that wilderness situation for a reason. There's a reason. Nothing happened in our life by chance. It's for a reason. It's for our purging. It's for our cleansing. It's for our purification. It's for our sanctification. The wilderness place or season is important for us because a purging need to take place. Glory be to God in the highest. In Psalm 65 verse 5, let me get to it. Bear with me. We see that it's reminding us about the goodness of God. Glory be to God in the highest. By terrible things in righteousness, way with thou answer us, O God of our salvation, who art the confidence of all the ends of the earth, and of them that are afar off upon the sea. Verse 6 says, which by his strength setteth fast the mountains, being girded with power, which stilleth the noise of the seas, the noise of their waves, and the tumult of the people. Glory be to God. So we see that Psalm 65, verse 5 to 7, and even beyond, is reminding us about the awesomeness of God. God in his sovereignty. Glory be to God in the eye. So we must remember that God, is sovereign. And in order to serve him, we must serve God in spirit and in truth. Glory be to God in the highest. Glory be to God. So let us remember the awesomeness of God. Glory be to God in the highest. And, we must remember that, whatever situation or circumstance, that God still remain to be God. Glory be to God in the highest. Not because our life isn't life in, or things might not be going the way that we want. It don't mean that God isn't God. It don't mean that he isn't sovereign. It don't mean that he stopped being God because things aren't going our way or working out the way that we want them to. Glory be to God. We know that he's the one God, El Chad. El Ane Eman, the faithful God. Glory be to God in the highest. El El Emet, glory be to God, the God of truth. In God, it's all truth. There is no lie in him. The devil is the father of all lies. Glory be to God in the highest. Glory be to God. Let me do something on my screen. El Sadiq, the righteous God, the God of righteousness. El Shaddai, the all-sufficient God, the God that is sufficient, able to do exceedingly and abundantly above that which we could ever think, imagine, comprehend, or understand. El Olam, God everlasting, or the everlasting God. Glory be to God in the highest. El Diat, the God of knowledge, the God that knows all things. He is omniscient. He knows all things. Glory be to God in the highest. So we have to understand that God is God. Glory be to God in the highest. Let us stop up the live, people of God. Let us stop up the live. It's going funny. Glory be to God in the highest. El Agadal, the great God. El Akavad, the God of glory. El Akadash, the God of glory. El Ashamayim, the God of heavens. Glory be to God. El Shea, the God of my life. And he should be the God of your life. El Shannom, the gracious God, the God that is gracious unto us. He gives us good gifts. El Yisrael, the God of Israel. El Sali, God of my strength, the God of our strength. Glory be to God in the highest. Glory, glory be to God. El Rachum, the God of compassion. El Malili Rashamim, all merciful God, the God that bestows mercy unto us. Glory be to God. El Yashati, the God of my salvation, the God of our salvation. El Yeshatenu, the God of our salvation. El Kana, the jealous God. El Anora, the awesome God, the God who is awesome in all his way. Glory be to God in the highest. So let us remember the God that we serve. Glory be to God in the highest. And if I just read Psalms 145, allow me to find Psalms 145. Glory be to God in the highest. Psalms 145. Psalms 145 verse 5 to 6. It reads, I will speak of the glorious honor of thy majesty and of thy wondrous works, and men shall speak of the mighty and men shall speak of the might of thy terrible acts, and I will declare thy greatness. Verse 7 says, they shall abundantly utter the memory of thy great goodness, and shall sing of thy righteousness. Verse 8, the Lord is gracious and full of compassion, slow to anger, and of great mercy. Verse 9 says, the Lord is good to all, and his tender mercies are over all his works. Glory be to God in the highest. Glory be to God in the highest. So let us remember the God that we serve. Glory be to God in the highest. And we see that these, scriptures, it collectively, or it pulls together that God is awesome, that God is sovereign, and is not merely a feeling, but a recognition, or to recognize his objective, this obvious, this tangible reality, as our Father, our Creator, and that, he's not no play God. He's not like Baal God, because he's a true and living God. He's the King of kings, and he's the Lord of lords. He's the God of gods. He's a true and living God. Many kings, one king. Many lord, but one Lord. Many gods, but one true and living God. Glory be to God in the highest. So I hope this bless you. I hope this encourage you. I hope this help you to understand that we serve a true and living God that is awesome in all his ways. Glory be to God in the highest, that he, is able to do exceedingly and abundantly above that which we could ever think, imagine, comprehend, or even